Hi, Adam. How are you?
Hey, James, great. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming to do this. Yeah, I'm really excited to get to talk to you about this. I had a wonderful time watching the film. And for those who haven't seen it, can you please describe in your words your latest choreography?
Well, I suppose it's a very simple tale of a very lonely woman in Australia in the 1970s who hoards ornamental snails.
Yeah, as one would do. We all, I think we all have our snails that we collect, which is always fun. As you can see behind me, I've got a bunch of stuff that I collect too. It's so I easy to identify with Gracie on that side of things. Not so much with the other darker matter. Not my lived experience, of course. Um, with that, it's because it is such a dark story. How did you both crafting the script, but also the overall look of the film and your presentation of it, balance the darker aspects of the storyline, so it isn't just all doom and gloom, and keep some of that comedy in there.
Oh, great question. Look, it is very tricky as a writer to get that balance. And I often worry that my films are getting too bleak and too depressing. I always try and temper that with as much visual humor and moments of levity and comedy and humor where possible. And that's why in this film, I really tried to have the ending being very uplifting and full of hope and warmth and humor, but again, very tricky to write, and I spent many years doing many drafts to get that balance right. And I think that's it'd be much easier just to do a gag film, but with all my films, I want to reflect real life, and of course, all our lives are a roller coaster. We all have moments of joy and then pain, and I love that quote, without the dark, the light has no meaning. So I really think you need those dark moments so that when the light moments come along, they are a release of that tension, and the audience really enjoy those lighter moments.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. It's we sometimes need to go into those dark places, but it's nice to have a little bit of that outlet as we go through. And in regards to that, your self-described chonky wonky artistic style, does that help in a lot of ways, or does it present some obstacles that maybe I'm not aware of?
No, look, the chunky wonky has actually helped in many ways because originally I was very mindful that my films looked imperfect and crude and lumpy. And that's because I was born with a physiological tremor. So I have trouble drawing a straight line. And sadly, I can no longer animate. I just don't have the my shakes just interfere too much. But I learned quickly to embrace those imperfections. And the thing is, my characters are imperfect themselves. They all have some perceived imperfection or flaw. And what I'm trying to say with all my films is to embrace your warts and all, as well as other people's. So that's why the aesthetic, we keep it deliberately asymmetrical, imperfect looking. I know my prop makers are always struggling because they keep building these beautiful props that are so refined. I keep saying to them, "Oh, it's too good. Can you make it worse? Can you drop it on the can you drop it on the ground a few times? Can you rough it up? Because I don't want that refined look. I want it to look. It's also true. We want to celebrate the fingerprints on the clay and remind the audience that what they're looking at is not CGI. It's not AI, and that it's more that everything you see has been handcrafted. So that's why we do things like fire is yellow cellophane, cigarette smoke is cotton wool. We want to say to the audience, everything you've just seen on the big screen has been handmade.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful labor of love. Like I'm a big fan of stop motion, always have been since I was little, and I love just how much different it is than traditional 2D animation. Of course, now 3D and animation and CGI. that it has that, as you say, that tactile feel to it, even though it's on a screen and I can't exactly touch it, but I feel like I could. Like it feels three-dimensional. Um, it's always amazes me at how much effort and work and craft goes into stop motion. Like I know that this film, I believe it's over 8 years to produce. You've been working on it for like 10 or 15, 12 years or something like that with the writing process and everything. Like it's been a long labor of love to get this movie out. And I got to imagine there must have been some days where you're just like, maybe when you're animating and it just isn't animating, though, like it's just, how do you get through those days where it is super tough, even though you love the idea?
Well, look, it's a ridiculous art form when you think about it. It's so slow, it's so expensive. And there's certainly days I wished I'd chosen something else. But look, I think it becomes weirdly, it's never tedious. Well, not for me. It's very meditative, and my animators, you can't get them out of the studio at the end of the day. They just love being in the dark, moving things frame at a time, and they only achieve between 5 and 10 seconds a day each. But look, I think all animation is slow in its nature. I mean, I've got friends who are CGI animators, and they're always cursing me because they say, "Oh, Adam, everyone thinks what you do is really slow and what we do is really fast." But CGI is equally as slow and torturous. Um, it's sadly just the nature of the beast. That horrible mathematical equation, which is you need 25 images roughly per second to flash before your eyes to create the sensation of things moving. That's sadly never going to change. That's just what our brains need, roughly. And that'll be the same in a million years, I'm guessing. So we're never going to get around that fact. I mean, certainly digital technology assists us, digital cameras, digital software, it all helps. But what I'm trying to do with my films is celebrate traditional methodologies, but at the same time embracing the new digital technologies, which have in many ways liberated us. And I think stop motion is going through a wonderful renaissance and golden period at the moment because I think because we're drowning in CGI, that there is a real appreciation for art forms that are handmade. And now that AI has arrived as well, I think the appreciation has gone up a few notches as well because, when you see the fingerprints on the clay, you know that what you're looking at has been made by human beings. But I'm sure AI will, you know, move in soon and destroy all that. But well, hopefully not. Yeah.
Well, hopefully not, because yeah, it's a bit soulless. It's just the nature of that particular beast. But with that in mind, like of the difficulties side of things, is there one scene that you remember like specifically that you just go, oh, I'm glad I got it. It's in there, but that was the one where it almost broke me that day.
Well, I would say it's the opening shot, the opening montage,
Right.
the title sequence, because it was extremely challenging to set up. It took 2 weeks to glue all those props together. It took my cinematographer another 2 weeks to plan the very complex camera move, which was done by a giant robot with a snorkel lens, frame at a time. It's the longest shot in the film. I always joke that it's my Scorsese Goodfellas shot. And it was very ambitious. And the worry was if it did work, it would make the rest of the film look pretty weak because the animation, we didn't have a lot of time to shoot the film. But I'm glad it worked, and audiences have really responded to it because also it sets up the claustrophobia of what it's like to be a hoarder. And right from the get go, you know that this film's going to be very dense and rich and unusual and dark. So it was a great way to start the film. I also love too that it ends going into this shell, and then the camera then comes out of Pinky's mouth, and
Right.
that itself, getting that camera into that little tiny elderly woman's mouth was so difficult. But the cinematographer Gerald did an amazing job.
Oh, that's awesome. The whole film is so beautifully done. It's a testament to both you and and everybody on your team, that all the animators that worked on it. It's fantastic. I appreciate you taking this time to talk to me today. Of course, the film Memoirs of a Snail is releasing theatrically now, and will be releasing across Canada through the rest of this year. Um, Again, Adam, I appreciate you taking this time to talk to me about the film. I really love it, and I think you've done something really spectacular with this.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for your great questions as well. Yeah, my pleasure. I'm so relieved actually because there were days where I thought this is all a waste of time, and there were moments where we were going to quit as well. But my producer and my team kept me going, and I'm so relieved it hasn't been a waste of 8 years.
Definitely not. Again, thank you very much, Adam. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
My pleasure. Thanks.